Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Procurement, the only show you need to master the art of procurement. Let's go. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of your favourite podcast in the very niche world of procurement, Let's Talk Procurement. With me, as always, is the guy who usually has a good haircut, but not quite today. However, he has discovered facial hair, and I think he's got new glasses. Welcome back to the studio, Luke 10. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, could be worse. That's our podcast saying, isn't it?
One of many.
Since my house move and since the tragic story of me breaking up with my barber, I've not managed to find a good barber yet. And what's worse is I'm paying double the price for a worse haircut. But yeah, the place I've moved to, I just I need to experiment, need to play around, as you like to say, play around with the Turkish. That was your quote, wasn't it?
I believe that was, yes. I believe I did say that.
Yeah.
Give them a go, see if they get the hot towel out. Now, one thing that I should let the listeners know is you seem to have grown some facial hair, which I'm very proud of. I feel like a dad who might need to teach his son how to shave. I would kind of describe it as I don't know, it's got a moustache, slight little like handlebars going down into a little goatee. It's kind of like the full circle around his mouth there, and then the rest of it's all missing on the sides. So is it a Movember thing, or is that?
What are you saying? I could only get something this bad from doing a charitable event. Like, you're saying there's no way I'd actually want this, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
To be honest, I think it's just the way my camera's positioned and the light, because this is how I normally shave my facial hair. I shaved like 2 days ago.
You've rocked up with that before. I think I would have known if I'd seen that. No way.
Honestly, I don't know what you're on about. This is the same as it's always been.
Definitely not. Have you dyed it or something?
I'm the guy on the right in our podcast art.
Yeah.
I'm not the short fat guy. I'm the hench, tall, chiseled man.
Well, all will be revealed at some point in the future, no doubt. So, another episode of Season 2. I guess we'll have a look at the notice board to our left or right, whichever kind of side you're sitting on. Can you see anything on there? Anything for you to update the listeners with today?
Yes, I wanted to update you on something. So, why are you shaking your head?
I'm laughing because you said earlier, I was like, have you got anything prepared for the notice board? And you said, absolutely not. And now 5 minutes later, you've all of a sudden got something. So,
my brain works in wonderful ways. You know that. So I was on my second SIPS module. By the time we're recording this, I think the most recent one that we've published is the assignments episode. So in that, you asked me if I've managed to promote the pod yet to my cohort, my classmates, in my SIPS assignment class. And I hadn't at that time. Did the second module, and a topic came up that was the topic we just recorded an episode on. So whatever the episode was, I can't remember. Actually, I think it was supply preferencing. It was a supply preferencing model. That topic came up. And I was like, I can't, it's our most recent one, and it's the second module. I kind of have to. I'll stick a link in there. So anyway, I thought it will probably go, maybe get 1 or 2 clicks. I thought probably go undetected. And then the SIPS tutor, he's like, "Oh, Luke, I see you've put a link in the chat to a podcast. Is it a good podcast?" And I was thinking, I can't really say, I don't know, I can't say yes or no. And then I feel like I have to be honest and tell him that it's my podcast. It's actually me on the podcast. And then he was trying to chat to me, and he's like, "Oh, really? How's it going? How do you record?" Actually, some good detail in there. And then when he was getting me to kind of like explain it and stuff. And as I was going to do a bit of a sales pitch to the other people in the class, my connection dropped out.
No.
So, so I don't know if. I mean, I did send them the link, and the tutor said he listened to it in the next break. He said it was all right. He said he'd heard of. He said he'd heard of Procurement Gods series. I don't know if he was just like he just picked the first thing he heard and was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that." But I mean, he might be listening now. To be fair, maybe he's an ultra legend of a guy. But yeah, I'm sorry for. This is my confession to you, Luke 1. I'm sorry for not being prepared with my internet connection and being able to do a good sales pitch for the pod.
No, look, I'll forgive you on that because more often than not, my connection lets me down. So you are forgiven. I don't know if you've seen. So this is my update that I'm bringing to the table. The review that we've recently received on Apple Podcasts. No. Well, let me read it to you. Okay. So The title is Fun, Buyers and Supply Chain. And it says a podcast that makes the world of buying and supply chain fun and interesting.
Okay, like it.
Love Luke 10's journey to becoming a SIPS icon.
Yes.
And I want to see his famous trim soon. And the nickname, so I'd love whoever did this to come forward, is 23 Only Jans 12. So.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm not sure if Only Jans is like a play on a certain website where they've changed fans to Jans for Janet. I'm not sure, but
that'd be so cool. What
maybe it is Janet. But yeah, so we've now got that as a review. So I'm glad you haven't seen it. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, that's made my, I was going to say week, but probably like made my decade, to be honest.
Oh.
That's it's made me feel good.
See? So if any of you other listeners want to make Luke's decade, then feel free to get onto whatever platform you're listening to right now and drop us a cheeky little 5-star review and, well, a lovely little comment, because that was very nice. Doesn't have to be nice, but we like the nice ones. Question. Do you listeners know how to get in touch with us? Did you say no? Well, that's weird. Because I think we have an email address. Luke 10, have we got an email address?
We do indeed. It's 2lukes1sip@gmail.com. That's the number 2, Luke's plural, the number 1, CIP@gmail.com.
What a beautiful email address. Thank you for sharing that. Feel free to use it and get in touch. If not, try the text us button. That drops a lovely little text over into our inbox, and we can put you on the website if it's exciting enough. Have a chance to be featured. Today's wonderful topic, self-selected by Luke 1, because it contains some actual useful information today. That topic is TCO, total cost of ownership. Luke 10, what does that mean to you, my friend?
So, I mean, we've kind of covered this a lot in SIPs in level 4. This was a thing that came up a couple of times. Don't know if you remember back to your level 4 days. Such a long time ago now.
Yeah. Pre-internet.
Yeah. So TCO is about considering. I'm going to sum up the whole episode now. No need to listen on after this. Considering the life cycle cost of something that you are buying. So not just the initial purchase price, but also all the other costs that come later down the line.
And in your very nearly professional opinion, why is that important?
Well, it's like something else that we do in procurement in terms of reviewing contracts, right? If we weren't to consider future risks, things that could go wrong, we don't know what kind of stuff we'd be exposed to. So it's about planning for the future and making sure that we know what's happening. Being informed when making a decision.
Have you got an example, or would you like me to give you an example of when TCO goes wrong if you're not aware of it, when it can kind of, put you in a bad spot?
Are we going with a professional example or a personal example?
Whatever you want to do, my friend. Whatever is concocting up in your brain.
Well, I was thinking about the example of purchasing a car.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, I was. And I can't remember if I've told you this story about me. But okay, so to give some background, I bought a car on New Year's Eve. It was the first car that I'd bought by myself. Didn't need no help from anyone, family. I was like, no, I'm an independent man. I'm going to go and buy a car. So, probably got absolutely mugged off in the negotiations. Anyway, bought this car, New Year's Eve, right? That's important. Drove it, next day, New Year's Day. And then we're coming up to about 48 hours after I'd bought the car, driving along on the M25, famous road that goes around the outside of London. And all of a sudden, the engine cuts out while I'm in the fast lane. I'm doing 70, engine cuts out. That's kind of weird. All right, let me try and turn it back on while I'm kind of like drifting along in the outside lane. Doesn't turn back on. So I'm like, got to pull over. So I pull over to the side, hard shoulder. And kind of, it's like, I'm not a mechanic, but I'll have a look under the engine. And my mate who was in the car next to me, he was in the passenger seat, he gets out of the car, goes around to the bonnet and he goes, it's on fire, get out of the car, it's on fire. So basically, turns out, short story long, I bought a car, 48 hours later, it's set on fire. And that fire caused the car itself to be written off, and the M25, both sides, were shut down.
Incredible.
Lanes were blocked because the police came on and blocked people from going past me. Fire brigade had to come out.
Can I set the scene for the listeners there? That you mentioned the M25 is a road that goes round, that kind of circles London. It's a major motorway, right? So when the M25 is shut, thousands of people know about it.
Yeah.
All the little villages around the outskirts have tons of traffic trying to divert through them. It's absolute chaos. So you definitely, and there's a lot of people travelling around that time of year as well.
Yeah. So why this came to mind was because obviously initial purchase price of the car.
Yeah.
I think a few thousand. It wasn't a majorly expensive car, second-hand car. But then obviously had follow-up costs after, like the highways agency had to come and pick my car up off the side of the motorway, tow it to their storage depot, store it there for however long. Because it was 48 hours later, I was trying to get money back for the car, because obviously you told me that surely there's nothing I could have done to that car in 48 hours that would have caused it to set on fire. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so I was thinking, shit, are we going to go to small claims court or something? Am I going to have to pay out legal costs as well? I was also, in an unfortunate turn of events, the friend that was sat in the car next to me, we were basically, I was moving into his house and I was moving him out of his house. So we had loads of our personal items in the back of the car, which were fire and water damage when they came to put the fire out. So obviously there's all the cost of replacing that.
Yeah.
If you actually drive past that section of the M25, there probably is a George Foreman grill that was discarded on the side of the motorway somewhere. It was by Heathrow as well, which makes it even worse traffic-wise, because that is probably the busiest part of the whole motorway network. So yeah, that's my long way of saying we should think about a car when doing this TCO example.
Well, I'm happy with that. You kind of gone through the whole example there anyway, so episode done. See you next week. No, I like that. Let's let's bear that in mind. Did you go
You
to
like my car setting on fire?
I do, yeah. I'm glad you're okay. Obviously, otherwise this podcast wouldn't be possible. But it's a good learning experience. So I'm guessing that scared you into going into procurement because you thought I better learn how to buy stuff properly now.
To be honest, I think I was already in procurement by that point.
Oh no, that's got to be a duck up, hasn't it? Surely.
Yeah. Maybe we go into it in more. Well, I don't know what more detail there is. I mean, there was loads of like fallout discussions and negotiations that happened later on. Maybe we could cover that in a duck up.
Yeah, is there dash cam footage that we can add to the episode and have a little bit of a laugh?
There are a few videos of. I mean, I think when I'd say a car fire, what I've kind of learned through telling the story is that people think, I don't know, there was, a couple flames coming out of the engine.
Yeah.
When I say the flames, they were probably the flames coming out of the car, probably about 10 foot, 12 foot high. So it was a serious fire that just came out of nowhere.
And you bought it from a dealership?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's good to know. Right. Yeah. So we'll bear that in mind as the example. And one of the big issues with not considering total cost of ownership is you get lured in by the initial purchase price and perhaps a special offer or something that looks great. And putting cars to a side for a second, one popular example of this is printers. So if you're going to buy some printers, you more often than not you think, I don't need to use it too often. I'll print off a couple of pieces of paper at home every now and again, and that's it really. So you go online, you look for some printers, and there's loads of printers. You can go from £50 all the way up to probably 1,000, if not more. And you think, well, I'll just get the cheapest one because I'm not going to use it, too much, and it'll just be sitting there. However, what you soon realise is that you've not considered the total cost of owning this thing, and lots of other charges such as ink become quite overburdensome, and you end up spending more in the situation on the cheaper one than you would have if you'd have gone for something a little bit more premium. Okay, so yeah, bear that in mind.
Yeah.
So I kind of always think of when I'm looking at cost and the entire ownership, it's a bit like the procurement lifecycle when you're looking at which, by the way, procurement lifecycle, season episode 2 on that coming out some point. Yep. Stay tuned for that one.
Nice.
Definitely coming out soon. Yeah, there's a number of costs that you think of. So do you want to kind of have a guess at any of those additional costs? So not just cost to purchase.
Cost of operations. So say for example, if it's going back to the printer example, you got to buy ink. If it's a deal for 500 printers throughout a global company, probably some of them are going to break. You're going to need maintenance and support. You might need to ring up someone who's going to tell you to turn it on and off again. That sort of stuff.
Not cheap. Yep.
And that sort of expert advice comes at a cost.
And obviously, if you're running a company of that size, do you think that your users will know how to work a printer, or are they all brain dead idiots who probably need training?
Well, if we go back to the example of Fly Farm Incorporated Industries, then Big Dave is absolutely a brain dead idiot who can't operate a printer. Can't even operate the front door, let alone a printer.
The only thing he knows how to work is a toilet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. So cost of training is a big one that goes in there. So often as a company, you think it's great to roll out, but the person who might be making the purchase might have a bit more of an insight as to how these things work. But just because I'm technologically savvy doesn't mean that your facilities team are technologically savvy, or it doesn't mean that your HR team are going to be ready to use it, or your legal team or your finance team, right? We all have different ways of working. We all look at things differently, and we're all going to need to be trained so that we use it in an appropriate way. So granted, we're talking about a printer here, but some of those printers in a corporate environment can actually get quite confusing with lots of different settings. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Cost to operate. Any other ones?
I was thinking, I don't know if this would count as one, but let's say you're reselling this, you're reselling your fire cars to a client. You're going to need sales, you're going to need advertising, marketing, you're going to need legal for when the inevitable client tries to sue you for your fire cars, right?
Yeah. So
it's like staff cost of, I don't know how you'd categorize that.
Your cost of kind of creating, maybe?
Yeah.
Is that kind of where you're going? And I feel like that's quite a good one. Designing what you're going to be purchasing, the build of it, and if we go to your printer or your car, we'll do printer. We'll go back to the car at the end. If we do printer, you've got the acquisition of the printer itself, but then what color is that printer going to be? How are you designing that? Who are you paying to design that printer for you if it's a bespoke one? Or who's going to install them? Installation fees. Who's building the case and then going to go and do the kind of negotiations? Do you need to buy any additional licenses to use? So, is it a wireless printer where you have licenses that you, like you say, need to resell to a customer? And then how are you managing that and overseeing that? So there can be a lot of hidden costs there. And
what about if you buy the printer and it's in, I don't know, red, but then all of a sudden you get a bull farm in your office, so that angers the bulls. So you've got to change the color of the printer, right? You've got to switch it up to what's calming to bulls. Green means stop, red means go.
Women? No, I'm not sure, to be honest. I've never really tried to calm a bull. But yeah, you might have to change things, and that's another thing to bear in mind. Obviously, your environment, your needs, your use case might change subtly over time. How long is your printer expected to last? How long is your car expected to last? Do you want to buy a printer that lasts for a year, or would you rather spend a bit more and get a printer that lasts 10 years? Well, I guess that would depend on your needs and your use cases, right? If you believe there's going to be such a big technological change in the next 10 years, you probably don't want a printer that's going to be outdated 12 months in. Think of an example of wireless printing. So now you can email a printer with an attachment and it'll just print it off for you. Well, if you'd bought a printer 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do that, right? So
yeah, like smartphones. It's a big thing with phones, isn't it? Obsolescence.
Oh, you pluck that word out of your arse. That's beautiful, that, mate.
A big bank.
And why is obsolescence important?
Because let's say you have some clients in the office. If they come in and you're using a fax machine or a pager as your primary messaging service, then they're probably not going to give you the business, because they'll just think, well, this company doesn't move with the times.
Yeah, kind of your reputation or your brand or your, I think the main thing with it is that it's no longer got a purpose or no longer useful, and effectively it then becomes almost like dead inventory for you. And if you've got dead inventory, you've got cost of storage and things like that as well. So obsolete printers, last thing you want. And then obviously you've got to the end of your life cycle. What are you doing with the printer that you've just purchased?
Throw it in the bin.
Brilliant.
That's right.
Is that right? Is that what we want to do?
Upcycle. That's the rage nowadays, isn't it? Upcycling things.
So you could upcycle it. You could obviously you need to decommission them. So you need to take them all down, deactivate them from your networks. You
could. Everyone's quite concerned about the population of bees. You could, hollow it out and turn it into a beehive.
A bit of recycling. I like that thinking, actually. That's a good business you got there. And you might have data in there. Importantly, a lot of things these days are harvesting your data, and you need to make sure that before you do give it to charity or turn it into a beehive, you want to make sure that any personal data or important data is destroyed. And of course, not everybody can do that. That becomes a change or a charge, and something else that you need to consider. So going through that, I know that was quite quick, but you've got a number of things that make up your total cost of ownership. So the cost to actually get that item or create that item, so your kind of investment expenses, your setup expenses, and everything to get prepared for getting that device or whatever it is. The cost to change, so any modifications, any upgrades, any changes that you need to make during the life of you owning this device. Cost of operation, so maintenance, repairing, fixing, greasing the wheels, MOTs, that sort of thing. We'll come on to that in a second. And then the costs of ending, i.e. cost of termination, costs of shredding, recycling, and in some instances it might not even be a cost. You might be able to get some cash back. You might be able to resell it and bring some cash back, and that might factor into why you pick one option over another, because actually you can get some cash back at the end of the life cycle. And that is kind of the four components that, above and beyond just your initial acquisition cost, are things that you probably should consider when making a purchase.
Makes sense.
You right there, mate?
I'm just storing it
in the old
just printing it in my head.
The bank of Luke. So this is a bit that we like, and it always goes well, is we go through the theory that we've just discussed, and then Luke 10, who's come up with a wonderful example already, kind of applies his knowledge and the theory he's just learnt to his example that he gave us. So Luke 10's example was him buying a car very badly, clogging up the motorway and setting it on fire whilst moving into his mate's house. So, bit of a disaster. Let's revisit that day. It is... Did you say it was New Year's Day?
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. Okay, let's revisit that. It's New Year's Eve. Enter mysterious year. It's cold outside. You have no car. And you've arrived at a dealership. Okay? Now, this dealership offers you a couple of options. We've got a brand new lease car, electric. And then we've got a 7-year-old petrol alternative. And for simplicity, we're going to say they are both the same car make, size, and model. This is just the brand new version that has been electrified that you can get on lease.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Good. Initial investments. Talk me through them. What's the initial investment for the brand new car?
Big money. You've got to buy a brand new car, so that's going to be a high inflated price, as brand new cars always are. As part of the initial investment, because it's a electric. Did you say electric car? Hybrid car?
Yep, electric or hybrid, whichever one gives you a good time.
So because of that, you've also got to install an electric charging point in your house.
Oh yeah.
That costs money. You've got to buy the parts for that, and you've got to pay someone to do it.
Yep. Okay. And we'll go on the basis that because you're almost doing like a lease model, maybe with a fat balloon payment at the end to own it, you're probably going to have a fairly high deposit, right? I'm guessing.
Yep. Also true.
Or
deposit.
Lump sum. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really annoys me. They call it deposit and you never get it back.
Also, you gotta think about the way to and from purchasing the car. Might be a Mackey's on the way. If you're in a good mood, you might stop off, get a Burger King, get a KFC. Isn't it a rule that you have that you stop at every single fast food place on the way to buying a car?
Well, only if it's a brand new car. You don't
Okay.
have that for second-hand cars.
It's not a rule for the second-hand cars.
No, slightly different market. So that has to be considered. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think if you're looking at the cost of creation for a second-hand car, do you think it'll be much different?
Yeah, because, well, the second-hand car market these days, just
All right,
awful.
geezer.
Just, yeah. Call me
Cheers.
Luke 20 because I've just had a kid. Yeah. And now I'm doing classic
What
dad
is
chat.
happening? Is this
No,
what you, is this
so
what you
obviously
do
it's going to
when,
be less. It's going to be less than a
confused?
brand new car, but still not insignificant because shortage of second-hand cars on the market at the moment. I believe I'm a little bit scared to buy a car. I have bought a car since then, and it's not set on fire yet. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
But I'm scared to buy another car after that in case the same happens. So from my knowledge, still a cost, but not as much as a brand new car would be.
Yep, no, that's fair. You know, you might want to pay for the whole thing up front if you can. If not, you might need to take out some sort of loan or something, and that will maybe require a half payment of cash up front, something like that. But also, what you probably didn't do that you should have considered doing is paying for a mechanic or someone who is not working for the dealership to come out and just look at the car and give it a once over and make sure that it looks like it's going to do a good job.
You can do checks if you have the reg number, and you can also buy a little device. I've since learned you can buy a device which you plug into the car, which will tell you about any faults.
You can, but that's the electrical faults in the engine, isn't it? Like it read the electrical system. Is that right?
No idea.
Yeah, but again, you know, slightly different costs. Probably slightly lower in the cost to create stage. Yeah. Cost to operate.
Hybrid cars are known for their great fuel efficiency.
Impressive.
So that's a pro for them. Obviously, petrol, the price can fluctuate of that. There can sometimes be a shortage. Now to start a whole nother 40-minute spiel on supply and demand. Luke 1, go.
Oh, me? No, I'm not. You can't just.
Oh, okay. We'll just insert another ep there.
Yeah.
So that can be a cost. Also, let's say you're a smoker. I know you smoke quite a lot. You smoke a lot of cigarettes, don't you? So you know if you're sat in your car, you got leather seats, you're having a ciggy.
Yeah.
Accidentally, some ash falls on the leather. You gotta repair that.
Well, that's
or,
cost
you know,
to
if you-
change that. You jumping the gun there.
Oh, okay.
wear and
I'll
tear.
save that example.
Save that beautiful example for the next segment. But no, so cost to operate, yeah, the slight difference maybe is a brand new car, you don't have to do your MOTs because it's valid for a couple of years, MOT lists. Tax, so electric or efficient cars pay either no tax or a lot less tax in the UK, whereas your second-hand car will require tax payments and annual sort of services and MOTs. Quite a big cost actually. You can look at a couple of £1,000 and assuming there's no repairs. If there are repairs, then that goes into the cost to change, right? Or cost to operate.
We have both recently felt the pain of expensive car repairs, haven't we?
We have, yes.
I think yours was worse than mine, but still.
Well, I did like the fix we did for your petrol cap. That was
yeah.
Just to set the scene, listeners. Luke 10's petrol cap fell off. No. Why was it not on anymore?
You know when you have to like, what's it called? Pull the petrol round to the wrong side of the car.
Oh yeah.
I did that and it squished the petrol cap and broke off.
Yeah, so
and it's just one of those days where, you know, those days when you're just having a really bad day. You're like, everything's going wrong. If there's one more thing that goes wrong, I'm gonna, start smoking a cig in the petrol station. It was just one of those days.
Yeah.
One of those days when you want to commit arson, apparently. And
so your petrol cap fell off, and
anyway, yeah,
we needed to repair it. And Luke 10's driving around, and you could see he's got a bright red car, so you can't miss it. And all of a sudden, you kind of look at his car and you go, "What's that? What's that black spot on the side of it? This giant black spot." And you realise it's because the cap that covers his petrol is missing, and it looks like a massive sort of health and safety risk. And it wasn't great. So what did we do? We went to was it Halfords?
Yeah, I think we just bought super glue in the end.
Yes, we bought super glue and stood there in the car park holding it while it dried for about 10 minutes. And it worked.
It did work. It's worked. It's still on to this day.
So that's slightly different to the £3,000 cam belt and engine replacement that I had. But yeah, both really big car traumas. And you can see why we're both devastated about that. So that looks at cost to change. Obviously, you might want to upgrade. You might want to get a new petrol cap to replace your petrol cap if it's broken. You might need to
cost
get
to operate, right?
Cost to operate, yeah. Cost to change. Integration, things like training. Any training? Any corrective maintenance? Any customization? So you realise that your banger that you bought was pink. It wasn't quite red, and you need to get it changed because for some reason you don't like driving around in pink.
Yeah, or your gear stick feels too smooth. You want one that's a bit more grippy.
I hate it when that happens. And your car comes with a radio, but no CD player. And Luke 10's looking at me going, "What the fuck's a CD?"
If I was in 2010 right now, I'd be fuming.
Oh shit! Yeah, I mean it doesn't come with the Bluetooth connection.
Yeah, what's it called? A TV in the car. It doesn't come with self-driving.
Yeah, no options. iPad.
Yeah.
So you have to get it all stripped out. So yeah, maybe cost of upgrading to make it feel a bit more like a technologically savvy car. And then cost to end, right? So let's say you've had the new car and the other car for 5 years now. What are the differences between the costs of kind of disposal or getting rid of or whatever you're going to do next?
Well, the newer car is going to be a lot easier to sell. It's going to have a lot of higher resale price.
Yeah.
So you're going to recover some of your initial investment and some of your costs that you've incurred throughout the life.
Yeah.
Whereas if you become a celebrity in that time, potentially it could be worth more because of, this car was Luke 10's car from back in the LTP days, before he quit LTP and went alone and became an internationally world-renowned celebrity, right? It's a piece of history.
To be fair, your little red fart box could be worth a bit of money in the future.
Yep.
So maybe we'll auction that off for charity. What do you reckon?
Yeah, the charity is my bank account.
Sounds reasonable.
I
didn't like it that much. So that really covers total cost of ownership, I think. So you're looking at the two cars. I mean, I don't know, based on that, general wear and tear, you would say you're going to get a lot more wear and tear from the older model of a car. Not always true, but you probably would. You have a higher upfront cost with the newer car. You might have lower costs in terms of maintenance, repair, and then maybe a higher resale value. But I guess as a percentage of what you've paid, is it a higher percentage or not? And I think one of the bits I like about having a second-hand car is that I don't have to pay that kind of like monthly purchase price, ongoing cost of just owning the car. A lot of people get sucked into £500 a month payments, whereas once you paid for it up front, it's yours, and then Granted, you might have to pay a little bit more, but for me, I prefer that. So, TCO can affect us all differently. I think kind of what the key takeaway point is from that.
Got to think about your priorities.
That's it. And I'd rather spend my money elsewhere, because that's the other bit, isn't it, with TCO, is that you're going to have a cost inflated with whatever your options are, but ultimately you want to spend your money on other things as well. So maybe the cheaper option is the best option. Maybe it's not.
Maybe instead you could give your money to us. Donate through our buy a coffee link, if we still have that.
Yep, we do. Yep.
Good, because I'm just so rich now that I've not even noticed the donations coming in.
You don't even drink coffee. Should be like buy a hot chocolate and a tap water.
Since it's come up twice already in this app, buy a packet of cigs.
I don't know where this has come from.
I don't know either. I'm not even a smoker.
I think it's because your voice went a bit like crispy, innit?
Oh yeah. That aesthetic, the 40 a day type aesthetic.
You've definitely got that with the facial hair as well. Yeah.
Basically just call me a pedo then, are you?
No comment.
To no one, it's fine.
To be fair.
Whoa, wait, why didn't you instantly deny that?
No, to be fair, I was just thinking, like, obviously I'm the older one of the two of us, so it's not a great reflection, if we were to actually look at it. Although it's just a podcast, so there is no age limit on a podcast. Is there?
No, but we do talk about ear pleasure a lot for it to be applicable for young people.
I think what I'm trying to say is that, I've vetted you, and I think you're old enough and kind of mature enough to decide to do this podcast on your own. And it's clearly a decision that you've made of your own free will. There's no coercion or anything like that.
Yeah, you did tie me into a contract, but apart from that, it was free will. It was free will to enter the contract, but now it's not free will to stay.
Yeah, but there's no exit clauses. That's
no exit provisions.
Yeah, it's just you're tied in now. So look, I hope that was kind of useful for you, listeners, and also for you, Luke. Just trying to tie in a little bit about total cost of ownership, bit of a tidy example or messy example in terms of two different cars, and perhaps printing as well. But I think if you do have any particular topics you would like us to cover, let us know. The email's already been shouted out, so we won't get him to do it again. Once a day is more than enough, as they say. I think on that note, have you got any words of wisdom to depart?
Yeah, never carry any apples on you and get ill, because if you do, you won't be able to be seen by a doctor.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, see you later.
What an enthusiastic way to end.
Yeah, it's really sapped the life out of me with that. Words of wisdom.
See you later.
See you later.